Hey everyone, my name's Jameis. I've had a request to show how to troubleshoot your ignition switch. This is a 1974 Mercury 650. It's the 3-cylinder model. This should also apply to the Super 6, and everything else. Just the wiring, maybe a little bit different. As you can probably see here, I have a wiring diagram. I'll include a link to the wiring diagram, but I made my own diagram real quick. Which helps me figure this out. So the easiest way to do this is go ahead and pull your harness off of the boat motor. It's pretty easy to get it off. This is the harness that runs between the boat motor and the ignition switch. And for the sakes of my diagram, I have everything numbered, and I'm numbering these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So on this diagram here, let's see if I can get the whole thing in the shot. There we go. Go ahead and pause it if you need to. I can also upload a photo of it. See, I've got XX 1, 2, 3, 4, X56, which matches up with the plug on the end of this harness. I've also written down where everything is. 1 is black, goes to the switch box. It also goes to switch D and tack. 2 is gray, goes to the choke solenoid. 3 is red, it's the rectifier, goes to the rectifier in the switch box. It's switch A, and it's going to be power in. 4 is yellow, goes to the switch box. It's going to be B on your switch. White goes to the ignition box on port number 4, and it's going to be F on your switch. Brown goes to the ignition box, is number 7. I didn't include what brown is on your switch. It looks like brown just goes to the tachometer. I've personally bypassed my tachometer just because I don't really care. The tach doesn't work and I don't feel like replacing it. It just kind of sits there. Just kind of sits there in the center console. Both those gauges right there do absolutely nothing. But it is what it is. Anyhow, I've had a request to show how to troubleshoot this, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. The tools you're going to need is you're going to need an ohm meter and your pigtail. So let's go ahead and get started. So holding this pigtail in this position, the run, to have this thing in running position, we need to have voltage across AF. So A goes to pin 3, and F goes to pin 5. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means between this pin here with an ohm meter, we connect this pin here. Let me grab this other pin. So we want to tap pins 3, pins 5, and we should see that ohm meter change just like that. Double check. See how it says low? See how it goes down to 0? As long as it's going down to 0, that means running is good. So next thing we're going to need, I'm just going to make this a little bit more difficult for me to do one-handed. So I'm going to use some jumpers here to make this a little bit easier. I'm going to hook the red jumper to pin number 3, or I'm going to hook the black jumper to pin number 3, the black jumper to my black terminal here. Hook this other red jumper to my red piece. And the other end needs to go on pin B. So this is going to be what it takes to turn it over. So B is on pin 4. So it's going on right here. So right now we're connected to pin 3 and pin 4. And this is going to be our cranking circuit. So when I put the switch in cranking position, should see it go down to 0. It doesn't have to go exactly to 0, but when I let off, it stops. So just to show exactly what I'm doing, that's me pulling the switch, cranking, letting off, and it'll stop. We can also check the if the choke is working up here while we're at it. I didn't rehearse that part, so I'm going to come back to this. I'll zoom out a little bit. Choke is gray. It's going to be on number 2. So what we're going to do is number 2, it's going to be 1, 2 on this diagram, number 2. So I'm just going to take one of these pins. We want number 3 to be our voltage in. We're going to hook one pin to number 2. And now, when I press the choke button, you should see that go to 0. Alright, because that's not going to 0, we know that I have the choke improperly wired up. And that is my quick rundown of how to troubleshoot the ignition on a 1974 Mercury 650. Stay tuned. I'm trying to make some other videos on it. I've already made some videos about how to do the bottom end, how to diagnose and replace your ignition box. I've also replaced my fuel lines through here. I have another video describing basically what the components are, and I also have a video about how to replace your triggers, which on these models are part of the housing. You can see over here where I've been trying to label everything, verify everything is. Your pigtail plugs in here. There's 2 screws. You may have to pull this out of the way to get it out. The easy way to do that, there's a little pin here on the back. You push that back towards the motor. The whole thing comes up. It slides up like that, and you can pull these out. When you pull these out, try and make sure you don't spin these any. This top one's your choke, this bottom one's your gear shifter. If we spin these and adjust these, we'll have to go back through and work with them again later to get everything realigned. But if you're careful with it, you can pull it all apart, put it back together without much issue. These wires that are on here across the loom, I actually started today thinking that those were bad. Those all go down to this pigtail. You can't re-terminate them. So, well, you can re-terminate them, but you can't replace them. So if they're bad, the whole thing's bad, and the whole thing's got to go. Alright, cool. Thanks for your time. I have been Jameis, and I hope this was helpful. Testing the ignition switch from the back, once everything's hooked back up, is more or less the same process. You're going to have one primary white cable that comes out and goes to your ignition module. This is a CDI electronics ignition module. I have a video on installing that. Doesn't really matter if you use this particular module or if you use the factory one. You'll still have the same white wire, which according to our diagram, A and F white wire is going to go to ignition box number 4 in the original one, and it's F on the switch. So what we want to do, I'm using a jumper. You can just put your leads directly on this. I put a red jumper on this side. Come over here, and I have that same red jumper. Where is it? Here we go. I have that red jumper this side connected to my ohm meter. See how it says low. We want to take the other end and just apply it anywhere there's a positive. I'm going to put it on this switch box, which I think is what it's called. See, I should still see low because the ignition is off. Let off the switch box. Come over here. Cut the ignition on. Come back. Test again. Any positive point should work. And it's understandable to see a little bit of resistance. But see, it's going down to 0. So that's how we can 100% test if our ignition switch is working.